Karum Chavanadotmam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayodhira Neshta Prayasho Bhadveshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavati Atimashoki Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki Nigama Kapadu Garitana Param Shukam Dhanamita Dvavi Samitam Pibata Bhagatam Rashamaryo Mahora Horishika Bhavakam Krishna Swadama Bhagade Damagini Karonashta Dvishamasha Paranako Dunoditam Twamapiyadabhishuta Vishutam Vibhu Samapyarana Virambira Kisana Prakyahi Devam Marinam Sanklesha Nivanam Santi Nanyataham Hey Karuna Sindhu Bandhu Jagatpate Gopishaka Bika Kanta Radhakanta Namoshtate Jayatam Sharito Pango Mamamanir Matirgati Matsavisha Parambo Joradana Madanamo Sriman Rasarasaram Vibamsi Bene Karshan Vinashano Pera Gopanatas Riyasaram Dibyad Bendaranya Kapadrumada Srimad Nagara Shima Shanishto Shri Shirara Shiragovinda Prachadabi He Seva Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmanya Tayaja Jagari Taya Krishnaya Govindaya No Mangalang Bhagavan Vishnu Mangalam Guru Rajaja Mangalam Padari Kaksho Mangadaya Om Narayana Vidmahi Vasadevaya Dimahi Tano Vishnu Prachodhyate Om Mahadevi Chavidmahi Vishnu Padni Chidimihi Tano Lakshmi Prachodhyate Mahalakshmi Namastubhyam Sare Sare Hari Pade Namastubyam Tapta Kanchana Goningi Radhe Vindavanish Vishavani Sudeti Vipranamani Pari Pari Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Sarasati Devi Gauravani Pachari Nirvishesa Sanyuari Praskadade Satarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Good morning, Rob on Zoom. Welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. Brent, by Bobby, Carmen, Jean, who apparently is in the hospital with cancer. So let's send our prayers to Jean. Never has there been a talk in the last 3 or 4 years that Jean's missed. So I pray that he may be in transcendental consciousness in the midst of his challenges. Yesterday, we talked about the qualities of a speaker, which were a bona fide speaker of Krishna katha. Number one is one who constantly thinks of Krishna. He doesn't put on a show, doesn't assume pretenses in front of an audience. What you see is what you get. He's always thinking of Krishna, and so a public talk is just an extension of every other part of his life. Secondly, he doesn't speak in exchange for any worldly desire. The katha itself is the fruit. It's not the branch to get some other fruit. It is actually the fruit. So the katha is spoken for its own sake and not as a means to get somewhere else. Third qualification is the speaker has friendship and empathy with his audience. He feels the pain of the audience. He knows his audience, at least as far as what are the challenges that they're going through in their lives. And he addresses those challenges with the aim of giving them relief and giving them the tools, the equipment they need in order to navigate the pitfalls of mundane life and at the end go back home, back to Godhead. Fourth qualification of a bona fide speaker is that he should, again, knowing his audience, if there's an area in which he feels it would be a little above the head of the audience, he may dummy it down a little bit, so to speak. He may change the philosophy into an allegorical story that's easier to understand. The whole Mahabharata, for instance, is called the fifth Veda, and it's specifically for the Kali Yuga. Why for the Kali Yuga? Because in the Kali Yuga, people haven't got an extended lifespan. They haven't got much intellect or particular interest in spiritual life. So they can't understand the philosophical aphorisms of the Vedic literatures, nor do they have the longevity in order to peruse them all. So the whole sum total of the Vedic truths then are condensed into story narrative form. Everybody loves a story. Not everybody can rise to the level of philosophy, but everybody loves a good story. So the Mahabharata incorporates all the truths of the Vedas in story form. So the Mahabharata itself is a brilliant effort on the part of the compiler Vyasadeva to make it accessible and relevant to the lives of people in this Kali Yuga age. And then fifthly, which we're going to start today on, is that the speaker should be respected by other speakers of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We saw this in the case of Sukadeva Goswami, when Sukadeva Goswami appeared on the scene during the last 7 days of Maharaj Parikshit's life. Many, many saints and sages had been assembled there. As soon as they saw Sukadeva Goswami, they saw his bodily hue. He had the same complexion as Krishna. They saw at a glance that he was completely detached. He had all the qualifications of an authentic, bona fide speaker. They stayed. They determined that they were going to sit in one spot, fasting from food, water, and sleep, and absorb themselves in rapt attention to whatever Sukadeva Goswami was going to say. He had the complete respect of the entire assembly of sages and sages. There wasn't a single dissent. As soon as he appeared, by his symptoms, they could tell that here is the person most qualified to speak the Bhagavatam. And because there was no dissent and no challenge, those sages proved themselves as qualified listeners as well. Then, when Sutta Goswami, who was one amongst that assembly of sages on the banks of the Yamuna River, holding their vigil during the last 7 days of Parikshit's life, then when he went from that assembly to another assembly in Naimisharanya, headed up by Shonaka Rishi, he was received extremely excitedly and graciously by the sage, so much so that Sutta Goswami declared himself satisfied with that reception by saying in the first canto of the Bhagavad, Munya sadyo prishtaham babadbhir lokamangaram yat krita kushasambhata yayatma shuprashidati. He said, oh sages, Munya sadyo prishtaham. He's offering them respects in the same way that they offered him respects. In the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Prabhupada instructed his disciples to call each other Prabhu. Prabhu means master. So you might have a position like temple president or vice president or treasurer, and yet you still call the other devotees Prabhu in order to avoid thinking of yourself as someone privileged, someone special, someone more advanced. Every other devotee refers to all the other devotees as Prabhu, which sends us the message multiple times a day that we're not meant to think of ourselves as sovereign. We're not meant to have a lording it over others mentality. We're not meant to think of ourselves in terms of an elevated position within the society as a more quote unquote advanced devotee. Prabhupada wanted each and every member of society to simply think of themselves as servants of the other. If you're executing more responsibilities as the treasurer or the secretary or the temple president, if you're the head cook, if you're in that position, it's only so that you can do more service to the devotees. It's not that you can enjoy any special privileges or perks that might or might not come along with that position. We see mutual respect between Sutta Goswami and the sages at Naimisharanya. Sutta Goswami said, you have received me very respectfully, and I offer you also all of my respectful obeisances. The questions that you have welcomed me with are of the greatest import for human society. Tam apia dabashuta vishrutambibu samyapya inabidambara prakyahidhura sanklesha nirvana musandina. The questions that you have put to me are the exact kinds of questions that great souls ponder after liberation, after having given up bhukti, mukti, yogi, siddhi, aspiration for mystic powers, yogic practices, after having gone beyond the desire, the crass desire for sense enjoyment, sense stimulation, and after having disillusioned oneself with the shimmer of mukti or liberation, saints and sages come to this point, Atmaramastimuti and Naranti Korvanti Itam Buddha. The subject matter of Krishna and Krishna's pastimes is the unique and exclusive subject matter for those who have left material activities behind. It's what liberated souls discuss. Sometimes impersonalists, monists, who try to make everything one, lump everything together, take away differentiation. They give the example that a full pot never makes any sound. If you hit a tuning fork on a clay pot, which is full, it just makes a dull crunk. Well, we take that example a little further and we say that the pot is full, but it keeps getting filled and it overflows. The devotees beyond the stage of liberation, many liberated souls practice silence. They seclude themselves, distance themselves from any social interaction. They're never to be found where the general people are to be found. They basically try to negate all variegatedness, all differentiation in order to make things one. They'll try to reduce their eating to nil, sleeping to nil. They'll have no conversation. And yet devotees of the Lord, because they're not only filled with Krishna consciousness, they haven't just negated material activities. They've done something much better. They've replaced material activities with spiritual activities. It said nature abhors a vacuum. You don't find a vacuum anywhere in nature. Sometimes we say, my gas tank is empty. Well, can I tell you your gas tank is not empty? It doesn't have any gas in it, is what you mean to say, but it's not empty. It's full of air. And nothing's empty anywhere in the creation of the Lord. The Lord himself is fully present within each and every atom. So the best process of transcendence is, rather than trying artificially to empty yourself, you have to be full with something. So replace mundane considerations, the desire for prestige, for living on the planet of the yogis, replace that with the desire to honor Krishna as a faithful servant. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So the example of the devotee being filled, the devotee is not only filled, but he keeps getting filled, so that if you compare him to a pot, the pot is always overflowing. Prayana deva muni ashamukti kamam modam charati bigane netadhya kripanam bimukshaeko nanyatara sha saranam prabhadiye. Poor-hearted, miserly are those who observe vows of celibacy, observe vows of silence, live apart from society in secluded places only for the selfish purpose of getting their own liberation. Such self-centered sages are condemned by Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj felt great compassion and great pity. Maya Shukaya Baramba Mudha. When he was asked for a benediction from Lord Nrsingadev, Prahlad asked nothing for himself. He only asked on behalf of the suffering living beings. Maya Shukaya Baramba Mudha. Let the poor living beings who are enamored of this temporary material world and consequently experiencing the agonizing pains of scorching heat and freezing cold and unrelenting sex desire and the fire of anger, let them all be relieved of their burdens of ignorance, and let them come to the peace, the ocean of serenity called Krishna consciousness. When asked for a benediction from Lord Nrsinga, this is what Prahlad Maharaj requested. And so Sutta Goswami thanked the sages in Naimisharanya for asking him such questions, which are not only relished by liberated souls, but they are also appropriate. They're also effective for interesting and uplifting average people as well. And Sutta Goswami furthermore says that without this focal point of Urukrama, the heroic, beautiful Lord, full of unlimited, transcendental, attractive qualities, without this transcendent Lord in the equation of our lives, there is nothing else which is of any real relevance. Why? Because nothing apart from the Lord is going to satisfy the self. You can
try from the highest planet to the lowest planet throughout all the various species of life and find or look in vain for that satisfaction for which we're always anxious, only at the lotus feet of Krishna. Nam namakari bahudana rishatadhabi anatimvada shmaranena kaitadushi tavakaram kripaya tava bhagavanda driva mamapi. There are no hard and fast. Lord, you have invested all of your transcendental potencies in your name, and one has only to chant the name without consideration of any hard and fast rules. The result of chanting one's name is that one will taste the nectar for which one is always anxious. Chanting the holy names cleanses the heart, extinguishes the flames, breaks the chains, blesses the earth at large with moonlight rays, discharging waves of nectar our sense has been craving since ancient days. The holy names put all their blessing to shame. Krishna Govinda, chanted anywhere, everywhere. The mercy Shakti is fully there. Divine app to restore your mental software, zap them out, or restart your heart, tap the reservoir of loving care. No hard and fast rules, no lessons, no schools. The bliss of bhakti rare, yet free for the taking. Only declare your heart is aching and divine love awakening. Night and day by constant recitation, chant the great mantra without hesitation, free from temptation with the sensation of feeling oneself. Lower in the straw on the street, more tall than the tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige. Humility is the key to enjoy the vibration eternally. Such potency is there in the chanting of holy name and associating with devotees, in the melodic kirtans, in the atmosphere of praise, that this principle has the potential to spread all over the world. And indeed, Hare Krishna is a household name. There isn't hardly a village or a household anywhere in the world that hasn't heard something about Hare Krishna. This is the way it spreads. Prabhupada gave the example once that if you tip a glass of honey onto a table, the nature of the honey is it won't just come onto the tabletop and stay. The nature of it'll spread. Now we've seen negative things spread like wildfire. It's said that from having eaten one bat in an open meat market in China, the COVID virus then went out from one person to another person, jumping, and spread all over the world. The whole world was infected with the COVID virus. So in the same way, chanting of the holy name has the potential to infect the whole world with the coronavirus, the virus of loving devotional service and concern and friendship and auspicity between living beings, human and animals and vice versa. Now, Maharaj Parikshit, to whom the original Bhagavatam was spoken by Sukadeva Goswami, was asked, you've just been cursed. You're a young man. You're king of the world. You have a beautiful wife, maybe wives that time, it's custom, children. You have full virility. You basically have the best years of your life ahead of you. And all of that has been curtailed by the undeserved curse of the young Brahmin boy. Do you not consider yourself unfortunate? He was asked, would you describe yourself as unfortunate, cursed to die within 7 days? And during those 7 days, as we know, he didn't eat, he didn't sleep, he didn't drink. All the things that we live for as materialists, all the pleasures, eating, drinking, sleeping, etc., were all absent from Maharaj Parikshit during the last short 7 days of his life. So he was asked on the 5th day, in fact, when he only had 2 more days to live, would you think of yourself as unfortunate? In other words, are you crying, boo-hoo, poor me? Are you having a pity party? Maharaj Parikshit answered, not only do I not consider myself unfortunate, but I would describe myself as the most fortunate person. Mahabhaga, he was fortunate, Brahmanda Brahmite Konubhaga, after who knows how many hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands of births throughout all the species and up and down in the planetary system, one is considered to be most fortunate to get the association of a pure representative of the Lord, a pure devotee. When that happens, one's trajectory from this life, at the end of this life, being propelled once again into another material body, into another womb, to undergo another round of birth, death, disease, and old age, that trajectory is changed from down to up. There's a 180-degree change in the trajectory of one's life, which begins at the point at which one meets a bona fide spiritual master. So Maharaj Parikshit in his humility says, now my history of birth, death, disease, and old age is coming to an end, because I'm going to spend the last few hours of my life ongoing hearing the katha of the Lord from Sukadeva Goswami. According to the scriptural injunction, Maharaj Parikshit corroborated that. He said, one is fortunate who meets a devotee. Tulyavana Maniki Nashragam Bhagavad Sangesh Marjadam Kim Utashisha. Says in that same first canto of the Bhagavatam, second canto, who meets a devotee even for a fraction of a second is more fortunate than a liberated soul, more fortunate than someone who lives on the heavenly planets and is full with all kinds of opulences. What to speak of a worldly person who's meant for death? Fortune is defined as meeting a devotee. Maharaj Parikshit said, not only am I fortunate because I'm meeting a devotee, but I'm even more fortunate because that devotee has come to me. He's sitting before me, and he's agreed to give me Hari Katha at the last stage of my life. Punya Krishna Katamritam Maranam. Punya Krishna Katamritam Maranam. The power of hearing Krishna consciousness is such that at the time of death, if katha of Krishna is entering into the holes of one's ears, death itself does not approach that person. That person becomes deathless. Ayarati Vaipumsham Udyamasha Tasharati Uttamashokavarti, who is engaged in hearing the glories of Uttamashoka, the Lord who is beyond this darkness of the material world. The rising and setting of the sun does not decrease the duration of one's life. One is Amrita Katamritam. One is deathless, who is engaged, who is bathing in the sound vibration, the topics of the Lord coming from the lips of pure devotees. Now, speaking of what was discussed, speaking of what's been described here in the 8th canto, in the pastime of Gajendra, someone might ask, now in chapter 2 of this canto, which starts out describing the tribulations of Gajendra the elephant, there are like 19 verses describing the location, which is the Jakuta Mountains, situated in the heavenly planets. Jakuta means 3 basic elements. So someone might ask, why are you mucking around describing the trees and the flora and the fauna and the rivers and the atmosphere and the mountains? Why not just get right to the action? Let's get right to the heart of the story. Why all this descriptions? Why all this wasting time? Let's get right. Let's find out what happened, isn't it? If sometimes a novel, a fiction novel will be described as so good you couldn't put it down. You read it in one night without putting it down. Someone might say, well, what's the description of the Jakuta mountain? The environment in which Gajendra's leg was grabbed by the crocodile and he fought for his life and eventually surrendered. What's the significance of that? Well, from an allegorical point of view, what's happening is that Gajendra's consciousness is going to be systematically elevated from bhakti. Bhakti means material enjoyment. You know, he's enjoying his wives, he's enjoying the water, he's enjoying his strength, he's enjoying his position, and he's enjoying it in this environment, which needs to be described. It's part of describing the initial level of consciousness, Gajendra. how he's in bhakti. And most of us could probably relate the aromas, the beautiful sights, the tasty foods, the intoxicating fragrances. Most of us can understand very easily how it is that Gajendra's original Krishna consciousness has been stolen away by the heavenly environment. So that's an important part of the story. And then from bhakti, the scene is set by describing the Trukuta mountain and its heavenly atmosphere. The scene is set, that's bhakti. And then the crocodile arrives on the scene and grabs Gajendra's leg, starts pulling him underwater. And there's a huge battle that takes place, tug of war between the elephant who's trying to get back on land and the crocodile who's trying to pull the elephant further into the water. The elephant's strong on land, the crocodile's strong on water. So who comes out the victor is really going to depend on which one can get back, can get further into, well, in Gajendra's case, if he can get back to terra firma, and in the crocodile's case, he'll be successful if he can get the elephant further away from terra firma. So this battle, this expenditure, tremendous expenditure of energies, which goes on for many days, is Shakti. So you start with Bhakti, and then the battle is described in the term Shakti. And Mukti is, throughout the Vedic scriptures, the concept of losing your individuality and merging into the energy of the Lord, becoming one with the Brahma Jyoti, is often described by devotees as the crocodile of liberation. Save me from the jaws of the crocodile of liberation. Devotees speak very, very negatively about the concept of merging and becoming one with God. They compare it to being grabbed, just as Gajendra was grabbed on the leg by a crocodile and being pulled away from your natural environment. So no devotee wants to become one with the Lord. That is described as Kaivalyam Narakayate. Kaivalyam Narakayate Tridasha Purakasha Pushpayate Durtendira Kadashapa Pataridam Srayate Visham Purnam Vidi Mahendrish Chakitayate Yadkaruna Kataksha Vaipatum Tam Gurume Vishtumya. Devotees generally see the idea of merging and becoming one with the Lord as a version of hell. Another way they describe it is flowers in the sky, phantasmagoria, to get satisfaction, to get fulfillment. By losing your individuality is not the way devotees see things. First and foremost, if you're going to love means two. If you as an individual are going to love Lord, then you have to understand from the words of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita that each and every one of us are eternally individuals. We're not like drops of water that are somewhere extracted and then go back later and merge, become one with the ocean upon liberation. We're eternally individuals. That's the way Krishna made us, because Krishna made us to love us. He didn't make us so we could merge and become non-different from him. He made us so that he could love us and be loved by us in return. We're dualists. We believe in two eternals, the supreme eternal and the subordinate eternal. We do not believe in interchanging, in removing the distinctions between the supreme spirit and the individual spirit, because that takes love off the table. So from bhakti, enjoying heavenly sense gratification in the heavenly planets, to Shakti, great battle takes place. And the thing to be avoided, the danger, is the crocodile, which represents mukti, or merging with the Lord. And then finally, when it dawns on Gajendra that he's not going to win this battle, and instead of getting back onto land, he's being pulled further and further into the water. And unless he tries something different, other than relying on his own strength, he's going to die right then and there. At that point, although he's lived his life up to this point in total obliviousness of his previous history of devotional service, at this point, Krishna uses this stress, this psychological trauma, to bestir the consciousness, to bring up in a good way the sediment from the bottom of the pool of his consciousness, so that the sense of having performed devotional service, the sense of having felt dependent upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead again manifests itself in the mind of Gajendra. And he comes first through bhakti to shakti, to mukti, and now his consciousness is saturated with bhakti. Take my life. And he's no longer even concerned so much about whether he lives or dies. He understands that he's an eternal spirit soul. He's deathless. He cannot be cut by any weapon. He cannot be burned by fire. He cannot be drowned by the water. The wind cannot wither him. He reaches a place of peace, a platform of knowledge, in which no matter what the outcome is of this current situation, he's happy. He's satisfied. He knows that he himself is deathless. And in that, at one and the same time, helpless, dependent situation of mind, he offers the lotus flower to the Lord. And he's asking the Lord to rescue him. There's nothing wrong with that. A father likes nothing more than the child to come running up to him, calling his name in distress and saying, save me, save me, save me, save me. That's what the father's there for. Father loves to take that role of the rescuer, the savior. So Gajendra's plucking a lotus flower and offering to the Lord, crying out helplessly to the Lord, no longer relying on his own powers. He's asking the Lord to save him. At the same time, he's also saying to the Lord, I am your surrendered soul. I'm good with whatever you want. It's all good. It's all good. And we often do this. When Prabhupada was ill in 1977, for several months, he lay in his bed in his room in Vrindavan, hardly eating, hardly sleeping, his body deteriorating, his circulation, his heart getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And we didn't want Prabhupada to leave us. He was everything to those of us who were his disciples. And so every temple, in the morning and in the evening, we'd pray, Krishna, please keep Prabhupada here. Please let Prabhupada recover. But we interjected in that prayer, Krishna, if you desire, Krishna, if you desire, please help Prabhupada to recover. We need him longer. And that was our prayer. We wanted Prabhupada to stay. We wanted Prabhupada to recover. We wanted to take advantage of Prabhupada's instruction, his purity and his leadership for as long as we possibly could. But at the same time, in all of that, we were saying, if you desire, Krishna, if you desire, because sooner or later, we knew we had to take the reins of Prabhupada's mission. Sooner or later, the child has to become the father. He doesn't want it. He doesn't plan for it. He doesn't lift a finger to make any arrangement for it. But it's just the nature of things that you've been invested in by your father. You've been invested in by your spiritual master, and he'll not always be there for you. He'll not always be present. And when he leaves, it's the worst day of your life, but at the same time, it's the beginning of your becoming an adult. It's the beginning of your standing on your own 2 feet. It's the beginning of your showing your beloved guru what you can do with what he left you. Whenever we pray, and there's nothing wrong with praying to Krishna, but always qualify, Krishna, if you desire, if you desire, if you desire. The whole process of Krishna consciousness is a methodical process for cleansing the heart. Some people might fail to see the purpose behind 19 verses describing the Trikuta mountains. Those same people would undoubtedly fail to see how in the beginning of some chapters of the Bhagavatam, there are pages and pages and pages of descriptions of lineage. So-and-so had such and such sons, and these sons had these sons and these sons. And there's nothing further said. There are no stories that come along with these names. And the reason for this is it's a methodical process for purifying the heart. Every one of the names of the kings in ancient times was a devotee. But there are certain names, there are certain pastimes which are particularly instructive for us. Maharaj Parikshit was sitting there listening to Sukadeva Goswami, and the eighth canto, as many cantos, starts with lists of names, and one name after another, after name after another, but when Sukadeva Goswami mentioned the name of Hari, a particular incarnation of the Lord in this particular Manu, having saved the elephant who called out to him helplessly, when Maharaj Parikshit heard that phrase, called out helplessly, he said, stop, I want to hear more about that. That's the same position Parikshit's in. He's helpless. He's cursed to die by Brahman's curse within 7 days. There's nothing he can do. There's nothing he wants to do about it. He wants to know how, in his last stages, he can come to that mentality of thinking of oneself helpless, like a child who can't do anything without the assistance of the mother and the father. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And one last thing we can conclude with is, if the description of the rivers and jungles and trees and mountains and foodstuffs and flora and fauna of the heavenly planets can be so enchanting and so beautiful as described there in the beginning of the 8th canto of the Bhagavatam, then can we not think, based on that description of the heavenly planets within the material world, would it not occur to us to think about how much more beautiful are the Vaikuntha planets? There are trees, there are waters, there are mountains, there are foodstuffs in the Vaikuntha planets, the regal transcendental abodes of Narayan in the spiritual world. But yet there's no matter there. Nothing is dulled. The splendor of the elements of that world are never dulled. They're never frayed. They never lose their luster because everything is spirit. There's no matter there. Even a material environment like the heavenly planets on which the Trikuta mountain is situated seem so alluring and so enchanting that Gajendra could lose his Krishna consciousness in the process of enjoying all that's to be enjoyed there. Then imagine how much more attractive Vaikuntha, the spiritual world, is going to be. And if Vaikuntha is that much more attractive than the heavenly planets of this material world, how much more attracted is going to be Krishna's own personal planet. In Goloka Vrindavan, where Krishna resides in his original form, there's none of the opulence, none of the palaces of Dwarka as there is in the Vaikuntha planets. There are only tulsi trees, peacocks, monkeys, simple rural houses, cows there, there's dust there. It's not everything, everything's not brand spanking clean. There's dust, there's monkeys, there's cow patties. And yet, think about how this being Krishna's own personal abode, this being the highest expression of Krishna's internal potency. Just imagine how beautiful is Krishna's Goloka Vrindavan, his own personal abode. And if that is so beautiful, then imagine Nikunjayuno Ratikeri Siddha Yayala Biju Surapekshaniyam. How unimaginably, impossibly beautiful are the groves that Vrinda Devi arranges for the meeting of Radha and Krishna. Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadumara Srimad Radnagara Shishi Radha Shilgam Shastalavihi Sevimano Shmarami. Divyad Vrinda, that the groves of Vrindavan are completely transcendental. They are the place where meeting up in secret, quote unquote, in the middle of the night, Radha and Krishna seat themselves beside each other on a beautiful jula. And the jula festival, the swing festival, is coming up at the end of the month. Everyone, please come to the temple in the evenings and swing the deities on their jula. Radha and Krishna are seated beside each other in a jula, and all of their associates are swinging them and decorating them with unguents and perfumes, flower garlands, and singing sweet songs to them. It appears to be a simple rural environment. They appear to be in a simple grove, Seva Kunj, which has its privacy because of a wall around it. And there's some crooked, sort of gnarled looking trees in there. There's a swing. There's Radha and Krishna associates. And yet there's nothing ordinary about this whatsoever. The trees are kalpavrikshas. The associates serving the Lord are eternally liberated associates, intimates of Radha and Krishna forever. And underneath the roots of these apparently rustic, gnarled, crooked, simple trees are all valuable jewels. Imagine the beauty, the attractiveness of a place, the roots of whose trees are embedded with valuable jewels. The jewels are not visible above land because the beauty of Vrindavan lies in its very simplicity. There's no complications, there's no sophistication as there is in Dwarka, as there is in a kingly life, as there is amongst queens and in the palace. There's none of that in the groves of Vrindavan. There's only pure Krishna prema. The unselfish love of Radha and Krishna, Radha for Krishna, and the unselfish reciprocation of Krishna's love for Radha. It is said that for Radharani, who's the topmost servant of Krishna, if something makes her happy, but it makes Krishna unhappy, then that becomes her greatest unhappiness. And if there's something that makes Krishna happy and makes her unhappy, that becomes her greatest happiness. Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan, in the grove of Seva Kunj, enjoying the arrangements made by Brinda Devi and all the devotees, is the highest emblem of pure, selfless love of God. It's the ultimate destination of the soul. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rob, I will not neglect. Let's just start with you first, okay? I was so carried away last, and we were running a little late, so I forgot to ask you to share. You did send them over by email, and we posted them. Appreciate that. But I would like to, as a hedge against my own senility and forgetfulness, I would ask you right now up front to share your sayings with us. Do you mind?
Not at all. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Ready, bro?
A pure speaker under peer review speaks nothing new, just tried and true.
What was the first line? Under review?
A pure speaker under peer review.
Under peer review. Pure review or peer review?
Peer.
Peer. Okay, nice. You're getting some stars and some hearts and some thumbs up on Facebook. I'll tell you that.
True speakers' respect for each other is like that of a sister or brother.
Nice, nice.
Like butter on bread, bhakti will spread.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
If it were left up to us, we would all catch the coronavirus.
Can you say that once more?
If it were left up to us, we would all catch the coronavirus.
Okay, all right.
Don't let a flower smell keep you in hell.
Okay,
Being Krishna dependent is actually resplendent.
nice, very nice.
A genuine listener becomes a speaker and teacher.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's all I've got, Prabhuji.
Well, that's good. A lot of good things today. You want to hear? Carmen's got a couple. Shall I read them to you?
Yes, please.
Because Rob doesn't use Facebook, so he wouldn't see these later. Individuality is the reality. Merging into one erases the fun. That's pretty good.
That was really good.
Yeah. Okay, here's one more. Chant the holy name when you're materially insane. Nothing's same and calms your pain like the fame of the holy name.
That's great.
Those are her two ones. Aside from that, we have Jean, whom we're sending our prayers to there in the hospital in Salt Lake City. He's almost like Maharaj Parikshit, hearing katha in the last phases of his life. Brent, thank you for joining us early on. Bye, Bobby. As always, Carmen, not only listening, but contributing, just like Rob, giving back. Shali, Hare Krishna, Ram Kishore. Nice to hear from you. Ram Kishore is busy up there in Milwaukee. They have a new center. Beautiful place. Looks like a very good central environment, spacious, lots of things going on now. Wish you all the best there in your yatra. And Sundari Priya, thanks very much as always, Sundari Priya, for dropping in. And Michelle, yeah, Michelle Capitan. Michelle and Greg. Okay, that's it for Wisdom Wednesday. I'll be in Farmington, Michigan. It's a northern suburb of Detroit. In fact, Dylan is a contractor. He's building an aviary for the birds. They were taking the front porch of our ashram and enclosing it, putting windows and doors and insulation. So the birds can be, in a sense, outside during the winter. They don't have to be confined to their small cages. They'll have it's probably 25 by 12 space area, and they'll get to see outside, and there'll be sunlight. So they don't have to be cooped up anymore during the winters. Anyway, Dylan's building that for us in his spare time. He's a student also, but we were having lunch together, and he mentioned he's from just right near Oakland County, near Farmington. It's an extremely affluent suburb of Detroit. I was reading about it on Wikipedia. I don't know if I shared this information with you yesterday or not. If I did, I'm sorry. But it has one of the lowest crime rates in the nation. It is one of the 15 most desirable places to live in the United States of America. The per capita income is, of course, amongst the highest. So right in the center of all of that, the Hare Krishna movement purchased a building and opened a temple there. Sundari Priya would know. She was at the opening. What was that? Maybe 3-4 years ago. Yugo Kishore is the president. So I'm going to be fortunate to go there. They have on their own property, they're going to observe the Festival of Colors for the second year in a row. They already bought colors from us previously, and we shipped them over. So now we're shipping me. Now we're shipping moi. The colors went first. The colors preceded me. And now I'm following my own colors over there to do the master of ceremonies job and pepper in our little rap songs and poems and so on and so forth. So sometimes after a big weekend, I don't always bounce back right away with classes on Monday or Tuesday. So I can't promise you that we'll have classes Monday or Tuesday, probably by Wednesday at least. But anyway, everybody have a great weekend. This Saturday in Salt Lake City, Amrita Sundari, who's back from Switzerland and is one of our most realized congregational members and a very good speaker. She'll be giving both the Bhagavatam class and the motivational talk. So if you can make it to Salt Lake City, please drop in. The Facebook Live podcasts are a little spotty nowadays. So don't rely on Facebook to hear the talk. It may or may not happen. Try to attend in person. It'll be well worth the effort. And I'll be giving the talk no, I won't be. Jai Krishna, sorry. Jai Krishna will be giving the talk in Spanish for it because I won't be back till much later on Sunday night. Thank you. As always, it's an honor and a privilege to spend these 3 sessions with you most weeks. I look forward to them. In the meantime, have a great day. Chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare.